Good morning. From Lagos, Nigeria, this is Morning RAVE.
To have you back, it's still your favorite breakfast show, Morning RAVE. And of course, before we went on that short break, we're talking about the ex-president Olusegun Obasanjo's recent interview where he accused the NNPC, or claimed that the NNPC will not be able to sustain the newly revitalized, Warri Refinery and Port Harcourt Refinery. And that stoked huge argument among Nigerians, especially stakeholders, to the point that the NNPCL even extended an invitation to him to visit on a tour. But then he turned it down and said that was very disrespectful. That's the story for another day. Anyway, we are waiting what the NNPC will say. Probably they'll officially invite him. But joining us this morning to discuss this very pertinent issue and something that needs to be known to everyone. It's Afolabi Davidson. Of course, he's the National Vice President, Oil and Gas Trainers Association of Nigeria. Join us. Good morning, sir. Thank you very much for
being with us.
Good morning, sir. Welcome. To all our viewers, this is the time for you to also join the conversation via our social media pages across all of the platforms at RAVE TV channel. Use the hashtag #BornOnRAVE, or if you chose to, the WhatsApp number where you send only messages to us as they come through. We'd love to hear your own comment or questions related to these very important facilities, which of course Nigerians are really now hopeful will turn the tide in terms of our economic growth. But let me start with Obasanjo's interview, because really it's what his interview that sparked up all of this conversation. He said something very, very troubling. And I want to quote what Obasanjo said before you come in, sir. According to him, during that, he said, if anybody tells you now that the refineries are working, why are they not with Aliko Dangote on the streets? And Aliko will make his own refinery work, not only make it work, he will make it deliver. He further said, whether we announce our own government refineries are working or not working, it's like they say in a Yoruba adage, the man who plants 100 heaps of yams and says he has planted 200 heaps, they say after he has harvested 100 heaps of yam, he will also harvest 100 heaps of lies. That is Obasanjo, end of quote. So you look at such pronouncement from an ex-president. Should we be concerned that these refineries may not work?
That's an interesting question. Obasanjo made this statement recently, but he also said something about when he was president, he tried to privatize the refineries. And he was led to believe that the refineries could not work. And his successor reversed the decision. But if we look back over the years with the benefit of hindsight, we now know that Obasanjo was actually right, because the refineries didn't work for that many years. But I'd like to also say this. Mele Kyari, the current GMD NNPC, made a statement a couple of years ago when he said that NNPC deliberately shut down the refineries. And what he said was, the reason was the input into the refinery was costing them $100, and the output, what they get out of it, was $70. If you parse through the statement that he made, you would be able to understand that he was also saying that the refineries cannot work the way it is because it was not viable. It couldn't be viable. Nobody runs a business like that where the cost of your inputs is $100 and then you're making $70. And we have to remember that that was under a subsidy regime. And that was why the subsidy regime actually had a major impact in killing those refineries. If we look at today, the cost of crude oil, or the price of crude oil, really is about $75. I checked it yesterday.
A barrel.
Yeah, $75 a barrel. So a barrel of crude oil will typically produce about 170 liters of fuel, right? So you put $75 into a refinery, you expect to get 170 liters of fuel. 170 liters of fuel at today's price, say, let's assume it's 900 naira per liter, with Dangote is selling. So you multiply that, what you will get is about 153,000 naira, and then convert that to dollars. At the rate of, the official is about 1,538. So the output really is about $99.6. So if you look at that math, you put in $75 and you get 99.6 cents. What people need to realize is that the margins in refinery business is actually small. So with that $99.6, we haven't even factored in the cost of energy, the cost of human capital, and other costs that go into it. So at the current rate, the only way Dangote Refinery could be successful is because there is no subsidy. If there was subsidy, there was no way. He wouldn't even sell to Nigeria because he couldn't make money. And the same thing applies to the refineries, our national refineries. Now, that's not the only challenge they have. Now, the fact that subsidy has been removed has actually made it possible for them to be able to run. But they still have many other issues. The Port Harcourt refinery, for instance, was commissioned in 1965. That's about 60 years ago. You can't run any kind of manufacturing or process plant that's 60 years old, that hasn't been running, you haven't maintained, and is old, it's not been modernized, it will continue to break down, it would not be efficient. All of those challenges existed. In addition to that, I read somewhere that the refinery was actually connected to the national grid. There's no way you can run that kind of a process plant on the national grid that's epileptic.
It collapses every now and then.
If you look at any of the major manufacturing industries that we have in Nigeria today, many of them have their own power plants because they cannot rely on the national grid to supply. Dangote Refinery has its own power plant. He also has a petrochemical plant in that same facility. If you look at all of the major manufacturers we have in Nigeria, flour mills, Cadbury, even Dangote Sugar, they all have their own power plants. So it seems like many of the successful manufacturing companies that we have in Nigeria all have their own power plants. If we're talking about an issue of the refineries, but we also cannot neglect the fact that the power issues we have in Nigeria is negatively impacting the ability of manufacturers to set up manufacturing facilities.
Okay, the thing is that when we look at, because Dangote Refinery came on board and we saw the euphoria, people were excited and people saw the product and everybody had hoped that, this facility will help the country in supply and of course probably also reduction in prices, which we have seen gradually. Would you say the NNPCL, due to the fact, and of course we know the back and forth between them and Dangote Refinery in terms of the stake they bought, and of course in terms of the supply of crude, would you say the refineries were rushed? Both of them were rushed to offer that competition to that, because NNPCL is they are rivals to the Dangote Refinery at this moment. So would you say both of them were rushed just to provide that competition, with Dangote Refinery?
For me, I wouldn't say they are competing per se with Dangote Refinery. They're not able to, because Dangote's capacity is about 650,000 barrels a day. All of those refineries combined, they don't have the same capacity as Dangote Refinery. But that's not to say that they cannot contribute to the local production of PMS or all these other refined products. So in the last couple of years, we borrowed about $1.5 billion just to be able to bring the Port Harcourt refinery back to life. They had to go through a lot of upgrades in technology, the equipment, and all of that. And they've brought it back to life. So what we're hearing is that because the refinery, the technology is so old, it cannot completely refine. They still have to blend. So the question really should be, is it worth it to continue to pour money into such a facility that is
I thought the Port Harcourt refinery has an old refinery and a new refinery.
Yes, it was commissioned in 1965, then it was extended in the 1980s, thereabouts. If you look at even the extension in the 1980s, that's almost 40 years ago. So they still, I mean, you can't compare it to what Dangote refinery has, which is likely the latest technology.
But I was talking in terms of market share. You know, if you look at it, Dangote's the product from NNPC is cheaper than even Dangote's own. Even when Dangote has partners with, I think, 3 other retail outlets. You know,
right.
People still head up to NNPC retail outlets to get the product because it feels cheaper than what Dangote and those filling stations that he has partnered with sell it. So in terms of market share, I'm looking at is there a rivalry there when it comes to market share? Maybe come because of the reduction in price of the product.
So there can be, but you have to also understand that the demand is so high, such that there's enough room for everybody. And then Dangote is not just providing to the local market. He can also export, which would be better for him. He would probably make more money exporting. And it's good for Nigeria. And then the other thing is, if we look at the pricing dynamics, I don't see NNPC price difference being that much more different than Dangote's, because there's so much you can do in terms of bringing your price down. What determines the price is your input and the price of crude, as well as the cost of all of the other inputs, the energy, human capital, and all that. So you can say that your pricing strategy is pretty much fixed, and there's so much you can do to bring the price down. If the price of crude oil goes up, then that would affect what we pay at the pump.
All right. So, now, one of the things Obasanjo actually questioned was the profitability of these refineries. And he stated, and I'm going to quote him, he said, even in the best of times, our refineries have never run at full capacity or been profitable. Now, given their history, has anything changed thus far?
Well, you can look at what is going on with the Port Harcourt refinery today, and you would see that what Obasanjo said is actually really true. The upgrade that was done to the Port Harcourt refinery, according to reports, was to bring it up to 90% capacity. Today, it's still not up to 90%. They're barely doing 30%. Eventually, it would take time for them to get up to that point. Dangote refinery as well is not running at full capacity right now. And the challenge with Dangote refinery is that they're not getting enough crude supply to bring them up to full capacity. So the truth is, and Obasanjo is right on this, refineries, for them to actually be profitable, they have to run at full capacity. And there has to be you have to spend a whole lot of money maintaining the refinery, which is another issue that NNPC refineries have. Now, NNPC has become a limited liability company, and that's what they say to us. But the truth really is not fully private, because it's still being run by the federal government. They're still taking orders from the presidency. Now, for you to be able to run a refinery effectively, you must put a whole lot of money into regular maintenance so that you don't run into that same challenge where all of the equipment breaks down, and it's not as efficient as it should be.
Yeah.
And we know how the Nigerian government agencies run. When you need money is allocated to the budget, and in fact, for you to get that money may take some time. You can't afford to do that with the government-owned refinery. That's why it's better to actually privatize it, because with the private sector...
I was going there to say,
yes.
With what all that have been done right now, and from what Obasanjo during his interview said, he was more, you could see that he was more in tune with privatization.
Exactly.
And, now that we've gotten this two refineries up to speed, at least to this point, can it be privatized? We do know that some of the funds that came in rehabilitating the refinery was also from the private sector as well. So
it was a loan.
Okay. It was a loan. Okay. Now, would it be proper to look at those facilities and immediately privatize them?
I think that's the most effective way to ensure that we get value from these refineries. Even now, what NNPC is doing is that they've actually contracted out the operations and maintenance of the refineries to a private entity. So they're trying to make the best of a bad situation, because they know that there will be challenges in accessing funds to continue to run the refineries. It's not cheap.
Sure.
And right now, the contract has been given to a private entity to operate and maintain it. And we hope that that can be sustained. But knowing the antecedents of NNPC with their relationships with their partners in the upstream sector, we can't really guarantee that they can sustain that. So really the best thing is to privatize those refineries.
Let's talk about some of the, holding NNPC accountable at this point in time. Now, some of Obasanjo's concerns, talks about performance as well too. But how can Nigerians now hold, what benchmark should Nigerians be looking out for to hold NNPCL accountable as they proceed?
That's a very good question. Okay, Mele Kyari is the current GMD of NNPC. There's been other GMDs before him, and what they've done over the years. Nigerians should really ask questions and say, can we hold all of those responsible people accountable for what they have done with NNPC? So for today, what we should expect, if NNPC has been privatized, has been told us, and we know that it's really not fully 100% privatized, what is the performance benchmark? What are the KPIs that we need to give to NNPC? Really, the KPIs really is to see how much money they're bringing into to Nigeria's coffers. And from reports that were published last year, it actually said that they actually overperformed and brought in enough money. Well, the market has changed drastically. Again, because there's no more subsidy, they ought to be making money. So we need to look at that and see if they can continue to do that. Now, with these refineries, we also need to see, are they able to sustain the profitability of these refineries? At the moment that we see that it's not working the way it's supposed to work, then they need to go to shutting it down or privatizing the refineries again.
All right. Because I remember during the present media chat where he talked about not relying on NNPC, and the ways and means, at least for
exactly,
and then the questions was raised about, okay, if is the NNPC not profitable? Are they not making profits? That was the big question that people asked. But then when you talk about privatization, how would this affect, especially in terms of people who have been working there for years, and then, of course, the labor unions, which, of course, have been adverse or opposed to,
exactly,
to privatization of such facilities?
Yeah. So the example, well, look back at the offer that was made to privatize the refineries back then, I think the numbers that were put out there was that the joint venture between Otedola and Dangote offered $750 million. And I think the contract was just going to be to operate and maintain. It wasn't full privatization per se. But to answer your question directly, of course you have to look at those issues. If I'm a private sector coming into this entity to run it and to ensure that I make profit, of course I would have to look at who are the kind of human resources you have. Are they capable? If they're not capable, then of course I have to bring in capable hands. Do we have to train them just to get them capable? If that's cheaper for us, that would be an option to go through. And of course, you can't go into an entity like that and continue to sustain a union or unionized labor force. It wouldn't work well.
There's also the issue of, or the fear of pricing as well, that if it's totally privatized, I mean, that means we should forget anything concerning reduce the price of
course.
Product, because right now people are more hopeful that NNPCL on board, as time goes on, it's still government owned. Yeah. We'll have the reduction in price, and
that's not going to happen.
And then privatize, it means that we should just hold up.
I can guarantee you to Nigerians, please do not expect any more reduction in the price, because what would affect the cost of price or the price we pay for PMS at the pump is the price of crude oil. If the price of crude oil goes up, the price you pay at the pump will also go up. The price of crude oil goes down, the price that you pay at the pump will go down. So the question really is it good for us for the price of crude oil to go down or up? Where we are, an oil exporting country, we want to continue to do that, but we're primarily a gas country as opposed to oil.
Exactly. So, which we haven't even taken advantage of.
So the issue really is, because we're also a member of OPEC, there has to be a balance between the price of crude oil and the price we pay at the pump. Whether it goes up or down, it's better for us that the price goes down. But then the Nigerian government would tell you, we don't want it to go down too much, because that's affecting our revenue, and that's what that's how we peg the budget.
The budget, of course,
the benchmark price of crude oil. So,
in conclusion, please, talking about global energy transition as well too. Now, with the global energy transition towards renewables, now one of the things Obasanjo just said was that he basically talked about relevance, and he said that investing in outdated technology is a backward step in a forward-moving world. Now, the question is, should we be prioritizing these refineries in this era of renewables?
Wonderful question. Wonderful question. I would answer that this way. Nigeria has actually also transitioned, because we're more of a gas country, because gas, based on the conversations held at the United Nations level, gas is now a transition fuel, because it emits less carbon into the atmosphere than oil, the traditional oil. So we're doing a lot more gas projects now. But we cannot, for the next 50 years or to 100 years, if you look at the trend of energy transitions generally, and the history of transitioning from one form of energy to the other, one particular kind of energy is not totally eliminated. It's just that you have a majority of users transitioning to the new form of energy. Right. Oil will still be relevant. But then the other thing we need to understand is for us as Africans, and particularly for Nigeria, we have this natural resource. Up until how long it would last, we need to be able to leverage that resource to benefit our people and the economy. Refining is not the only challenge because there are so many other benefits that we get from refining crude oil that would benefit our economy, make us a manufacturing and industrial giant. So we have to look at the petrochemicals. That's why you find out that all of these refineries that you hear of, Dangote Refinery, he also has a petrochemical plant. The Port Harcourt Refinery also has a petrochemical plant. The Kaduna Refinery is also a petrochemical. So the petrochemical aspect of it is where the benefit really is, because they produce so many other products that are used in manufacturing. And if we're able to do that, not only would we now develop our manufacturing base, we're also able to export some of these products that would earn us forex.
All right. Thank you very much, sir. So we've been talking to Afolabi Davidson. He's the National Vice President of Oil and Gas Traders Association of Nigeria, and also the MD of Davidson Salt Resource Limited. And of course, the subject of discussion had been the OBJ's Obasanjo's claim that the Nigerian refineries, both the Port Harcourt and the Warri refineries, will not work. And of course, we saw how that actually triggered the NNPC into inviting him to come and take a tour. And Nigerians also expressing fear that maybe Obasanjo is right, while others have said, no, these refineries are here to stay. Thank you very much, sir, for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate you.
We really appreciate it. And we do hope to have you another time as well when such a matter comes up in the national discourse.